In the late 1970s and early 80s, Los Angeles was a sprawling metropolis, deeply reliant on its nighttime economy. It was a city that never truly went dark, with millions of people constantly moving through its interconnected neighborhoods. That sense of urban routine broke in 1984. A sudden string of home invasions and assaults began cutting through the city, striking with a level of violence that Los Angeles hadn't seen before. Detectives were immediately stuck. Usually, a killer follows a pattern in their victim selection, targeting a specific age group, gender, or social class. Here, there was no predictable threat. The victims seemed to have nothing in common. Standard profiling metrics didn't hold up. When investigators looked for the usual motives, like financial gain or personal history, they found a scatterplot of random data. There was no clear logic to who was being targeted. The geographic spread was just as chaotic. The attacks weren't contained to one neighborhood. They were happening across the entire county. It forced the police into a defensive position, constantly reacting to new scenes miles apart from the last. Without a discernible pattern to track or a specific territory to patrol, the investigation stalled. The police were searching for a ghost who left behind plenty of blood, but no reason why. The LAPD shifted their strategy. Since they couldn't predict who would be targeted next, they turned their entire focus toward the forensic details found at the scenes themselves. Forensic teams noticed a recurring detail in how the killer entered the homes. He wasn't smashing his way in. He was looking for unlocked doors and windows left open for the summer breeze. This method contradicted typical home invasion data. Most burglars want to get in and out quickly, but this required a predatory patience, someone willing to spend hours testing handles and screens until they found a way in. The behavior grew even more disturbing. At several scenes, investigators found cryptic symbols and messages scrawled on the walls, deliberate taunts left specifically for the police to find. Witnesses who survived the attacks provided a final, chilling detail. They reported that throughout the assaults, the man didn't seem panicked or rushed. He was smiling. When detectives looked at the taunting notes and the lack of stolen property, the motive became clearer. The violence wasn't a byproduct of a robbery, it was the goal. He was selecting victims simply to see how much fear he could create. Details this sensitive are hard to keep quiet. Eventually, the friction between the police and the press led to these chilling details leaking out to the public. The city reacted instantly. Hardware stores across Southern California sold out of deadbolts, window locks, and home alarm systems in a matter of days. A city that usually felt open and trusting began to isolate. Millions of people who used to leave their windows open for the night air started living behind locked doors and barred windows. Knowing the killer looked for easy entry points turned the entire population into amateur sentries. Every neighbor became a stranger, and every shadow on the street was treated as a potential threat. This atmosphere put the LAPD under an unprecedented level of scrutiny. The public wasn't just asking for an arrest, they were demanding one, putting immense pressure on leadership to identify a suspect. The physical attacks were localized to specific homes, but the dread was everywhere. By the summer of 1985, the killer had successfully turned the city's own sense of safety into a source of constant internal suspicion. In 1985, the years of forensic screening finally yielded a match. Technicians managed to pull a single high-quality fingerprint from a stolen vehicle that linked several crime scenes to a specific person. Authorities made the high-stakes decision to involve the public directly. They released the suspect's name, Richard Ramirez, along with his mugshot, to every news outlet in the state. The hunt finally ended in East LA. Hours after the news broke, residents recognized Ramirez walking down the street in broad daylight. The neighborhood didn't wait for the police. A group of citizens chased Ramirez down, cornering him and holding him until patrol cars arrived. The very people he had terrorized were the ones who finally took him off the street. The trial that followed was a media circus. It ended with Ramirez being sentenced to death, finally closing the legal chapter on the most terrifying period in the city's history. This mugshot became the permanent face of the Night Stalker, the man who had managed to hold an entire city hostage without ever saying a word to the public. While Richard Ramirez was eventually caught, he left a permanent mark on Los Angeles. He changed the way millions of people viewed their own homes, leaving behind a legacy of locked doors that continues to this day.